Hey, what's up, Vox and Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops podcast, brought to you by Sound Talent Media, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians to talk about their lives, music, and craft beer. I hope you guys have been having a great week. I have been having a blast. Today's episode is a very special episode because it was recorded live at last week's Thirsty Thursday virtual hang. I personally loved this new format of conducting a live interview in front of the Thirsty Thursday gang. And I hope that everyone that came enjoyed it as much as I did. I really think this episode turned out great, and I can't wait to do the next one. I can announce to you right now, for the next Thirsty Thursday live interview, we shall be with another Vox and Hops alumni, the great Nikki Kalan of Necrogoblicon. Get ready, people. That is going to be happening on November 5th, which is the first Thursday of November. And if you would like to come to that, please send me a message via the Vox and Hops social media accounts, and I will send you that private Zoom link. So here it is, people. This is the very first Thirsty Thursday live interview with Danny Marino of the Agonist. This is Vox and Hops, episode number 189.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
What's up, everybody? Today I am with Danny Marino of The Agonist. I am super stoked to be with you. This is the very first Thirsty Thursday live interview, and you were an easy choice because you were the very first Vox and Hops guest ever. So Danny, very easy yet complex question that I've been throwing at all of my guests recently is, how have you been coping with 2020?
I think I'm getting by like everyone else, but I guess my main thing is behind me, the guitar. So I've been writing a lot of music. I improved my home studio a bit. Still definitely not a professional studio, but I'm able to pump out like pretty good sounding demos now.
Nice.
Got a bunch of plugins. Your guitar player, Chris Donaldson, the master mixer, gave me some advice about things I can get. So yeah, we're pumping out a lot of new material. So we're getting ahead of the game for the next record and more.
That is fucking awesome. That's very exciting. And because we're close friends, I know that that's not the only thing that you've been working on throughout this pandemic. There's something else that's coming up big in your life, if you want to talk about that.
That's right. There's a baby due in December. My first child with my wife, Laura, who's here.
Yes, so that's super exciting. I'm super stoked when I found it, of course. Yeah. So that's
so
a big thing coming up.
In terms of coping as well, it's an added, stressor, of course. So we've been in the group that has been exceptionally careful, needing to really keep our distance, needing to really be extra careful with everything. So that's been a challenge, but we're getting by. We're doing it.
It's tough. It's good that you have your music that you can dive into. Have you met certain friends that just don't take it seriously and don't understand why you guys have to?
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone has a mix of people like that in their life, or even just maybe peripherally with social media and all that. You don't just see your immediate surrounding, but all kinds of a network of people. So you see all kinds of views about every subject. So yeah, I have a wide array of viewpoints on that whole thing from across all my friends that I've made over the years. But generally, I'm following the science, and even if we weren't, pregnant, I still would be being careful. Maybe there would be a less degree a bit, but I still would be on the careful side.
Yeah, I am super, super, super careful because I spend all day, over 40 hours a week, with a mask and goggles, taking care of little kids. So it's pure reality for me what's going on in this pandemic. Vox and Hops is all about hanging out with my metal friends and talking about their lives, music, and craft beer. Danny, what beer do you have on your side tonight that we are going to share virtually?
I've got this Gallicus Loki.
Nice. Yes.
I've never had this particular. I had another Gallicus. It was the first time I had this. It's apparently with Sabro, your favorite, and Idaho.
I am team Sabro, 100%.
So I'm pouring it out now. We'll see how this is.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like Sabre because it's basically the coriander of hops because it has such a coconutty vibe, and a lot of people don't like coconut. So I think that's why it's so divisive, if that's the
Well,
word, if that's a word.
cheers.
That looks beautiful. That looks beautiful. Good, nice glass there too. I'm pulling out this. I found this at my favorite new local craft beer store, La Cadette. This is Brasserie Générale's. For some reason, it says Brasserie Artisanale to it, which confused me when I was trying to tag it earlier. Réverbère, number 7. Apparently, these brews are stuff that they had on tap for a long time, and now they're coming up to like a huge anniversary. I wish I knew that. And this is an IPA brewed with wheat flakes, citra, and cryo citra hops, which I love the cryo, and it's supposed to be intense and fruity. So take me to. This is a question I like to ask return guests. How has your craft beer palate changed since you were previously on VOX&HOPS?
I think it's expanded quite a bit because that was 3 years ago.
It's crazy. 2 years ago. 2 years and about 2 months.
Yeah, I was still in my old apartment, I remember. So I was like, it had to be a while ago. Yeah, I think I've gotten into a lot more in the funky sour area in the past few years. I've also come around before I hated, like, I didn't hate Belgian beer. I liked certain Belgian beers, but the triple and quad and all that kind of stuff, I was like, no. And now I've come around totally to that side. I might have overdone the IPAs a bit, that I still obviously enjoy them, but I think what happened was it became so oversaturated, and so the New England IPA, the hazy IPA thing, and it was kind of like, I like those, but I think it's that, how there's Tool, like the band, and then every city has like 4,000 local bands that are trying to be Tool, and they're not as good. So there's a lot of bandwagon copycat New England IPAs that are just, they're not actually that great. And there's of course a collection of them that are amazing. So there's just so many that once you start drinking always this kind of beer, you're kind of getting disappointed sometimes.
Absolutely, and I completely agree. And I think that breweries that just jump onto hype trains too quick and forget their values and why they started brewing beer in the first place are breweries that don't have a correct business moral compass, because you can't put out shitty products. It has to be stellar. If not, you're just going to lose it. It's a huge market, the craft beer market. And it's like the music market. If you're in a band and you just jump onto the next craze and you're not authentic and you're just doing it to make it, it's not going to work.
You can hear it. You can totally hear it, and you can taste this with beer when it's like they're not actually doing what they're best at. They're just kind of following because they want to make it, sort of thing. Unless sometimes there are certain breweries that are just so damn good, like the brewers and the master brewers, that they can kind of just do anything they want. You know what I mean? The ones that can do like 10 different styles amazing, those are like the harder to find ones.
I agree. Tell me that. Which one of those come off the top of your head right now? I have one in mind from Quebec, but I want to see if we match the same.
Dunham.
Oh, so I knew you loved Dunham. Yeah, I had Buck Canada, but Dunham hasn't nailed the haze yet.
That's true. All their IPAs are much more West Coast.
Although the newer ones that they've just started dropping are a little bit more on point. But it's just they don't like it. I think they personally don't like it, and they're finally just succumbing to all the the harassment from the haze hunters.
Yeah, they were definitely originally inspired by like Cantillon and all this kind of thing, but then they expanded into all kinds of like stouts and wheat ales and all kinds of stuff.
Absolutely. No, hold on, I made a mistake. I'm trying to mute everyone because I'm not working for me. I'm being distracted. Hello. let's dance into the fact that you guys released Orphans last year. You got to tour it minimally, and actually, I was super bummed for you guys because your last tour was probably your most successful tour in Europe, and you guys were opening for Ginger, and it was sold out all over. And you guys were hypothetically set to go back to Europe and just destroy because you guys gained so many more fans on that tour. Uh, how are you going to keep it going once you can go back touring? Are you hoping just to jump right back into that slot? Do you think that's possible? I hope it is. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, at least in Europe, what we built up now, it just kind of, in a way, all those fans that we played to that, clearly dug us a lot when we played, you're just stretching it out even longer, that like anticipation. So I think it should work out well once we can finally do it. There's already, I mean, we already have next summer festivals booked. I hope everything works out, but we're scheduled on a bunch of festivals for next summer in Europe.
Fuck yeah. I just hope it happens. I hope that it just goes away. That's all that we can do. We have to stay positive. We have to push forward with that. I threw out some like a request to the Vox and Hops Thirsty Thursday gang to send me some topics, send me some questions that they would like to hear from you during this interview. And one of them was about a band that you think has too much hype and you don't get it. And then me and Jerry Monk, who's here, started talking about a band that we don't particularly understand, but you certainly do. I don't want to talk about them, but I want to hear your opinion on what band do you think has too much hype that doesn't deserve it?
Well, it's always hard to like, no matter who the band is, you don't want to kind of like take them down a peg or like shit on them. You know what I mean?
That's true.
There's a bunch of bands that get quite big that I don't get it, sort of. Not that I kind of get it, but I'm like, why is so many people actually like this when it's like so, in my opinion, like hollow? Like, like I get why there's an audience for Five Finger Death Punch. I get why that exists, but like to the extent that that there's that many people that really love that, it's just like, to me, is so vapid and empty, and just, it's as if you took the worst soulless pop music. I'm not talking about good pop music, not like Bruno Mars. I mean like some really garbage thing you hear on like Virgin Radio or something. But then you say, but we're a metal band, and it's like, no, you're not. It's just this weird macho pop garbage. So I don't mind shitting on them, I guess.
Funnily enough, I was on the singer's Instagram account yesterday or the day before. I don't know why I stumbled upon it, and he posted some video of him dancing for 5 to 10 minutes to pop music. I didn't understand. It wasn't for me.
I bet it had 2 million views too.
It had more views than my post. That's for damn sure. France, a Vox and Hops Thirsty Thursday regular, is wondering if you guys are ever thinking of doing a virtual show. I know that there's some constraints with Vicky being elsewhere, being in Chicago now, but is that something that you guys have spoken about, thought about, and trying to problem solve?
We didn't really dive into it too much because of that, having that border separation between us was a big issue. And we're kind of like, we didn't want to do the Zoom show pre-recorded sort of thing where we're not even actually playing. It's, when you see those things, you know that it's just like a music video, right? Like everyone's miming their performance. Yes. But when the bands like, I saw Trivium do their actual live performance, and a bunch of other bands have done that for real. That's a different thing. That would be cool. But also it would be like, if we did it, I'd like to make it like something, like not just like we're in our jam space playing and that's it. Mm-hmm. So that requires, budget and investments to that. But it would be cool if that could happen at some point.
Fuck yeah. Behemoth destroyed the live stream game. I don't know how many people saw it. It was unfucking believable. Full production in this old church. It was to die for. It's set the bar. Corey Taylor's going to try something I think it's next week that's happening. I think that he's going to be setting the bar on that as well. Another question, Philippe Brousseau de Vitesse, a regular from Thirsty Thursday, has a few questions for you that they're all bangers. Number one, what are the best tips that you can give new bands that are going on tour for the first time? I have one that comes right off the top of my head. Get the fuck off the stage. When your set is finished, get the fuck off the stage as fast as you can.
Yeah, I would imagine that this new band would be, opening most likely on a tour, not headlining. So you listen to that tour manager that you're working for. He's your boss. If you've ever had a job before, you picture him like your boss. You do exactly as they say. You learn the ropes. You don't talk back. You get, you take it and do your job, and you're going to have a good time, because if he's your friend, things are going to go really smoothly for you as well. And I would say get to know everyone's name, not just on the tour, but when you show up to a venue, they're not just like nobodies. It's like the sound guy, his name's Paul. This is the light guy, it's Jim. Okay. And you get to know people. There's a promoter, all that. And then it's not just like, hey, you, where's my this? It's like, it's going to come back around to bite you in the ass when you go back to that venue a month later.
Because that's what happens. That's what happens. That's a very, very good point. And get off the stage very quickly. Don't be late. If you start late, you're cutting the song. It's just the way it is.
So don't. And this is another thing about getting off the stage thing. It's almost always the case. If there's like a touring package of bands with a bunch of bands that are all experienced touring bands, and then there's like a buy-on or like the first time band, that band who's like nobody has the most complicated gear. Which makes no sense.
The biggest drum set in the world.
The biggest, double kicks, 17 cymbals, which I guess for you is normal flow, but like
we're
like
well
double stack amplifiers with a pedal board this big, and like it's just like. Meanwhile, the headliner who plays arenas has like a floorboard with 2 switches on it, and it's like 1 cable, and it's like, that means when the show's over, you could pack up in like 30 seconds.
You are 100% right that normally when we're doing these festival tours, it's always that local band that pushes the fest way off schedule. So don't get pissed at the headliner or anyone else. Get pissed at your friends.
Yeah, they're like, we brought our own lights and monitors. Why?
Continuing with De Vitesse. Oh, these are fun, juicy. Guitar nerd question. What is the best guitar you've ever played and why?
I think the guitar that I've had the most enjoyment playing is my buddy Pavlo has I believe it's an early 80s Fender Telecaster that's been beat to shit and has been played on a million records, and it just has that mojo of like the sweat of 1,000 guitar players, because it's been like passed through a bunch of guitar players, and it's an original American, and it obviously I'm not using it for super heavy metal, but I used it on a few albums whenever I need a clean guitar or a middle of the road gain tone or an effectsy tone. I remember the last record we did with Chris, I plugged that into like a Fender Tweed amp with like a $300 delay, analog delay pedal and all this. And we had like 3 different mics in the room to pick up ambient sound and the speaker sound and all this. And I just sat in the room playing that, and I could just sit there all day just hitting like 2 notes slowly, and it just echoes and reverberates through the room.
That's amazing.
So yeah, that guitar is special. I told him I'm gonna have to take it from him one day.
And shout out to Pavlo. I love you, brother. We were in a band together called The Era of in late 2000s, early 2010s. That was happening. Great project. If you guys don't know about that, you should absolutely go check that out. Jorge, my friend and a huge Agonist fan from Toronto, has what's the best beer you have ever drank or discovered while on tour?
While on tour, you know what? I can't remember the name of it, but the best beer I had on tour was in Berlin. I went to a bar called Protocol, which somebody recommended to me. I believe it was someone here.
Yes, yes.
Matt.
I conducted 2 interviews there, actually.
Yeah, when we got to Berlin, I right away looked it up. I was like, okay, it's like 20 minutes from the venue. Okay, I can do this. And I actually had a really busy day that day, but we made it happen.
You have to.
And the stout that I had there was phenomenal. Like one of the best stouts, probably like the second best stout I ever had. And I probably checked it into Untapped, so I can check there, but I don't remember what it was called.
Very cool. And it is, I found it very strange being in Germany, going to a craft beer bar. And a lot of the beers actually weren't from Germany. Most of them were from, when I was there, were from Russia, and other ones from the Netherlands. I don't know what your experience was when you were there.
I don't know. I mean, it could have been from Russia. It's the Russian Imperial Stout.
They had some banging stouts there. It was killer.
Yeah, they even had I had 3 or 4 there, and they had like a juicy New England IPA, and it was totally like on par with New England IPA. It was like they're one of, I guess, those versatile people that can do just about anything.
Very sick, very sick. Jerry Monk, my music professor, who sends me amazing music recommendations just about every day from the VOX&HOPS Thirsty Thursday group. He wants to know what band doesn't get enough hype, the opposite. Band that deserves more attention.
Probably like 100 bands that I back. I've been listening to a lot of this band called Hath.
Yeah, Hail Hath.
Hath.
Hail Hath. I can't believe you're pulling out Hath. I'm so stoked.
Yeah, and I was like really impressed by that. And then I look and it's like, yeah, not much people paying attention to this band, but they are fucking amazing. And they do a lot of, what I like about them is like they sound modern. They sound like a band of today, yet they incorporate a lot of stuff from back in various generations sort of metal and death metal, but it never sounds dated. It ends up sounding still of like the 2020 era sort of like modern death metal. So it's like a very smooth way of doing it to not sound trendy, but still sound current, but like right. Using a lot of classic elements, as well.
I love Hath, and a lot of the members of Hath come to Thirsty Thursday, so it's very, very interesting that you said this.
Cool.
I love it. Time has passed. I probably asked you this question on the last time I had you on the podcast, but I want to see how things have evolved for you with your palate changing. If you could make a 2020 Agonist brew with a collab with a brewery, you could pick the brewery, pick the style of beer, and pick the name. What would that beer be, Danny?
I would do, I'm trying to think now.
The Agonist collaborative brew with. In the meantime, I'm going to talk about this beer that I'm drinking. Yeah. You can think about that. This Réverbère, I hope I'm saying that properly. Number 7 from Brasserie Générale. Killer with the wheat flakes that make it super, amazing mouthfeel, super hazy, and then the hops and the cryo citra. Love it to death. If you guys can get this, please do. If you live in the Quebec region, support amazing, small breweries, because especially right now they need it. COVID's striking back again, and they need all our support.
So I think I would go with Brasserie de Bas Canada, because it's right in Paco's backyard.
Fuck yeah.
Our guitarist Paco lives in Gatineau, which is where that brewery is. And if people don't know, it's possibly the best, or one claim to be maybe one of the best in all of Quebec, if not Canada.
It's definitely the most hyped.
Yeah. But I wouldn't do the IPA. I know that that's like kind of like their thing in a way, but they also do amazing stouts. So I would go for a bourbon barrel aged heavy stout, like 11% plus. And I would call it In Vertigo, like our song, because it's such a punch in the face that it's like you get vertigo, and and there'd be like a spiral on the artwork or something like that, or something like this.
Very cool. I love it. Evan Welch has a question. Evan Welch is the Thirsty Thursday After Party King. He wants to know what you think about a seasonal beer. What do you feel about pumpkin beers?
I wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan. I don't hate it, but it's like, I think when I started drinking, very first started drinking anything semi-craft, I was kind of like, whoa, because I was like, I didn't know you could make a beer that had this kind of taste. This is insane. Kind of like the same way as like the first time you have a raspberry beer. Like, what?
They were both Saint Ambroise,
like,
I'm sure.
Yeah, and both of them I think were Saint Ambroise. The pumpkin and the raspberry were the first. But then I had actual like pumpkin, because I know in the States it's like a much bigger thing. And I had one from Dogfish Head. And that was quite good. That's like, okay, this doesn't just taste like a pumpkin pie with shot into a beer. This was like balanced. They like purposely, and I get why it's a thing. It's just not my thing, I guess. Same with like pumpkin spice, like coffee, like forget that shit. Like, please, no fruits and vegetables in my coffee. Like,
you don't want a scarf and Ugg boots to go with your pumpkin spice latte.
I like if I do go at Starbucks, I'll just be like, I get a coffee, and they're like, what do you want in it? Or I'm just like black, and they're like,
I want coffee.
That's it? Yes, that's it.
Surcharge for nothing.
Yeah, you realize you're getting a $3 black coffee, right, sir? Yes.
Let's wrap up my portion of this with a classic Vox and Hops wrap-up question at this point. Danny, it probably doesn't happen to you because you're a very organized person, and you know what's going on, and you can control yourself, but it happens to everyone every once in a while. What is your hangover cure?
It has to be the hangover cure after, not like the night before kind of thing?
I want to hear the whole thing. If you have a routine to avoid hangovers, I want to hear that. I want the secret.
Okay. Well, I drink probably like 2 liters at least of water right before bed. Like I'll just I'll take the pint that I was drinking from or whatever it is and just fill it, drink it, fill it, drink it, fill it. Like that takes away probably a good, 25-30% of the effect that could happen the next morning. But that is after eating something very substantial. Like I can eat 2 dinners amount of food if I'm drunk, and I'm a very skinny guy.
Yes, you are.
But yeah, I can have like a large poutine, which is meant for like 2-3 people, or I can have, an entire pizza potentially. But I could never have that if it was just like dinner, if it was just normal time to eat. But if it's in that state, all of a sudden it just like disappears.
I don't know
if I do that and the 2 liters of water, right away that's going to take a huge amount of the edge off. And then the next morning, I've tried the pickle juice thing a few times. I'm not sure if it works or if I'm just confusing myself, but thinking it works or something. But I will say the hair of the dog thing does work. Definitely. There's no doubt that it works, but you will come down later still. You're just delaying it sort of. But I've done like, I can't do beer though. Like if it's the next day, if I do the hair, it has to be like a booze thing. Like either like, a Caesar is kind of like the best because all the salt and everything. But if it's just, like even if you're on tour or whatever, there's bottles everywhere in the bus, right? So there's bottles of vodka just right there. and it's just like it's 2 PM and you're waking up and you're just like fucking pounding and everything. Take a shot of that. It's definitely going to get you through the sound check.
I love it. I love it. And I as a father of 2 young children that tries not to get hangovers, I highly suggest to you, and I'm sure everyone has told this to you, but enjoy sleeping now. Because they will not let you sleep. And they didn't drink the beer, so you have to get up and be a good dad,
Yeah,
which I know you will.
At this point, like, I think the only times I really get hungover is on tour. Like, I rarely get like face down drunk in my life at home now. Like, I guess it's a sign of getting older or whatever. I can get like toasty, you know, but then I'll do like my water thing, like I said, and I might wake up with a little headache, but I'm not going to have that like end of the world hangover feeling.
Perfect. And then for the Thirsty Thursday gang member, Ollie, I hope you're listening. Drink water. Thank you so much, Danny. I am going to now turn you over to the Thirsty Thursday gang. They can launch some questions to you. As always, people, if you would like to ask a question, raise your virtual hand, and I will I will call you out, and then you can ask a question to Danny, and he will answer. I see some hands up already. Let me see who was there first. We have hold on. We have De Vitesse. Philippe, go for it, bud.
Hello. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. It's an extension of the question of the best guitar, but why Ibanez? Because I see you have a lot of Ibanez, and I'm like, it's cool. I have an Ibanez bass over there. So why Ibanez? Why not like there's a lot of brands today like Kiesel and all of that. Why Ibanez? I'm just curious.
I think I went through a few brands of guitars before Ibanez, but I think I landed on it. Maybe I'm a bit like old school, even in the way that like I haven't really gotten around to like the Artesides and Kiesels and solar guitars and the whole like new sort of generation. I played some of them, I tested some of them, and I know I can tell like I know that solar guitars are like unbelievably like made, and you can just feel it, sort of thing. But it feels kind of like a weapon more than a guitar. But like
I would say that of BC Rich, but
yeah,
but that's my opinion.
And I used to play BC Rich. I played Mockingbirds when I first started with the Agonist. But it was actually Paco who, when he joined the band, he was like an Ibanez, through and through, right? And he's a huge John Petrucci and all these kind of shredder guys, Joe Satriani, all these guys. And he joined the band and he was like, wow, I'm joining this touring band. He's like, so how do you get these like endorsements like that? And I'm like, well, I mean, you just contact the company. And he did. And he contacted Ibanez and he was like, hey, I'm in this band. And they checked us out and they're like, yeah, sure, we could work with you. And I was kind of skeptical. And I was like, nah. I was like this old school, like I liked Gibsons. I was playing Gibson Explorers at the time, and then I was like, okay, let's see. So they're like, oh, you play an Explorer. So, we have the Destroyer is our version of the Explorer. Why don't you try that? And I tried that and I'm like, this is pretty cool, actually. And then once I got on the train of the actual like normal sort of Ibanez guitars, and I felt like the Wizard necks and the profiles and all that, now that I've been playing those for years, I can't go back. I go back to a Gibson or something like that, and I can't even play it. I'm like, oh my god, like it's really an amazing tool, I find. But I use the FR guitars, which are the ones that sort of look like Telecasters.
Yeah.
Right, which is a little more my style, but it still has the same profile as the RG neck. So, yeah, it worked for me.
That's interesting. No, it's funny because I went to Ibanez like for my bass because I needed a new bass and I was like, oh, okay, let's go with Ibanez. Fuck the neck. The neck. I love the neck. Just the neck of Ibanez, just amazing.
They're the best necks.
But yeah, it's funny because you said Telecaster a little bit earlier, and I was like, oh, what does he going to respond to that question? I was like Telecaster, and you said it. I'm a divine.
Yeah.
Up next, we have the after party king, Evan Welch. Go for it, bud. Ask Danny Marino of the Agonist a question.
Hi, Danny. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Oh, another day above ground. So I have a question related to touring. Obviously, with the whole coronavirus shit going on, how it's going to look like touring. Are there any aspects of touring that you wish will change because of what's happened with Corona? Or are there some things that you expect to change because of it?
I can't really picture something changing that I can feel like, oh, well, that's good. Like, that's for the better. Because, like, in terms of the touring. Because, I mean, even the parts of touring that you might think are... touring is basically... I cannot think of a worse petri dish of viral spread. It is literally the worst possible thing you can think of. You are cramming into sweaty places with a bunch of people who everyone is shouting at the same time, 1,000 people all yelling together and slamming into each other. And then on top of that, your little crew goes and lives in a little bus with, like, at least for bands like me and Matt, who are not, super massive, you share a bus with a lot of people, right? So there's like 16 people living on a bus for a month and a half in very close quarters, all sleeping 6 inches away from each other, all breathing and everything, and no one's showering often, and everyone's touching everything, and everyone's drinking from the same cups, and everyone's hugging, and it's just like ridiculous.
It's just a big fun
like
petri dish.
Bacteria exchange nonstop. So that can't change, really. I mean, how do you change that?
So do you think because of that, the like when shows can actually start coming back, do you think it's going to be a little while?
To be just in a state of complete everything's back to normal, I guess, you mean?
More or less. I mean, yeah, when we can really start getting back to...
I mean, I know that some bands have already done sort of these regulated shows kind of thing. I'm not saying you shouldn't, I guess. I mean, if it's able to be done as safe as, let's say, it's as it is to go grocery shopping, then I guess it's okay. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I know that a lot of times from what I've seen, it's not. It's like, it'll still be like shoulder to shoulder.
On paper, they make it that way, but people don't respect it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I really do hope that there's whatever can work to make it come back as soon as possible safely, I'm for.
I have one thing that will make, I hope that due to Corona, COVID gets better, is the bathroom situations at venues. They can take time to renovate. They have the time now.
We can only hope they put doors on the stalls.
Doors on the stalls would be much appreciated. Because I'm sure, as Danny does, we all use the girls' room before the doors open.
Yeah.
Just
know, every girl who goes to a metal show, just know that the 16, 20 people that were on the tour bus all shat in the women's room before you got there.
100% true. Total truth right there.
You can only find that here.
Up next, we got Colby. How you doing, Colby?
I'm doing pretty good. And yourself?
Very good. What's your question for Danny Marino of the Agonist?
My question for Mr. Danny Marino is how and why did you get involved with Heartbeat Hot Sauce with your labeled sauce from those guys themselves?
That's a Montreal old school metal scene alliance. You take it, Danny. I know how that happened.
Yeah, so Al Bourbonakis was a drummer in a metal band in Montreal in the late 90s, early 2000s, of which, in the same scene that Matt came up in, he came up a little before me. I was too young. Al was the drummer in Inve and these other bands, and so basically he eventually decided to move to Thunder Bay, Ontario with his girlfriend and now wife, I think. And they started up, first of all, he has a degree in cooking. And so he ended up cooking in kitchens, and then he says, hey, I like making hot sauce, and they made their hot sauce company. And it was cool. And I remember when he did it, we passed through Thunder Bay, and he like the very first time when he was just starting the company, and it was like cool. And we met him because we were playing there. And then it just exploded and got bigger and bigger. And then he got on the Hot Ones show, and it was like, oh shit. And from then on, he's just been like bigger and bigger and bigger. And I just approached him one day and I said, hey, I love hot sauce. You love metal. Like, maybe we could do a thing together. We're about to go on this big US tour, which didn't happen because of COVID. Can we make a bunch of branded Agonist hot sauce and we'll sell it at the merch table? And he said, awesome, let's do it, man. And so he did. And then I have the boxes of hot sauce in my basement here.
Do you? I want one.
We have them on our online store, some of them, but what's extra is here. But like eventually, the good thing is hot sauce doesn't go bad. So it'll all get sold eventually.
Very cool.
That's awesome. Do you have a favorite hot sauce yourself, or is it Heartbeat?
It's Heartbeat. I'm not even like it's ridiculously good because I like flavorful hot sauces. I'm not into like how much fire can you take only. I can take a lot of heat. But I don't enjoy it when it's over the top. It's just kind of like ridiculous. So
add to what you're eating.
Yeah, they do that kind of thing. Like they're always like in the hot ones, they're usually in like the second or third sauce selection. But their latest one, which is on the new hot ones, is called Scorpion because they use the scorpion peppers. And now they're like number 6. So I haven't tried that one yet.
No,
I haven't tried it.
Very cool. Colby's very interested in hot sauces because he works at a hot sauce store, everyone.
Ah, cool.
Jorge, you're up next.
Hi, Danny, how are you doing?
Good, how are you? Nice shirt.
Thank you. You know, from a really, really nice bar over there in Montreal.
Yeah, best bar in Montreal.
Indeed. So I seen you live a few times, and I can attest that you put your strings to some workout. Really, really stress when you play live. So I was wondering, what strings do you use? What's your brand and what's your gauge?
D'Addario, NYXLs. We do drop D and drop C. So in drop D, it's 10 to 52, and in drop C, it's 1156.
Cool. That's quite a thick gauge, but thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I hit really hard, and I can't use Floyd Rose because like I'm chugging too hard on the down pick and everything, and it warbles the tuning. So
yeah. Well,
thank you. Up next, we have Jerry with a J, my music professor. Go for it, Jerry.
How crazy. Hath was his answer.
I know, it's beautiful. They didn't even pay him anything.
Yeah. I guess my question would be, since both mine were answered, craziest tour story.
I mean, there was the time we played in Colombia and the military came and shut down our show.
Wow.
And then a soap opera star from Colombian television was at the show, who's like apparently very popular there. I didn't know who she was, but apparently she is. And she went out and pleaded with the military, and they opened up the show again.
Wow.
And then, yeah, it was with Dark Tranquillity, and it sucked because there was like 6 local bands playing, then us, then Dark Tranquillity, and all the 6 local bands lost their slots because all the time that the military were there like blocking the show off, and we were like debating with them, and it took this soap opera woman who is like, she looked like that, she looked like a Colombian soap opera star, so it was just kind of like, what are you doing here kind of thing. But she was there and she's like, I love metal, and she was just like fighting with them and being like, you have to let the show happen. And then it kind of did, and I don't know if it's like she said that or because the promoter gave them money, but either way, the show happened, and a lot of other crazy shit happened on that run with like guys with machetes chasing people down the streets because they knew they were tourists from my band. And yeah,
Wow.
so Colombia lives up to the hype.
Holy shit. Drinkwater Ollie has a question for you up next.
Yeah, it should be working now.
Yes,
You hear
go for
me?
it, bud.
Great, yeah. So I'll drink a couple pints of water before I go to bed. Thanks for the tip. Everyone's been like telling me to do so, but I never do. So I'll give it a try. see if it works for me.
I love it.
So my question, Danny, was if it ever happened to you, what was the worst damage you had on either a guitar or piece of gear while touring? Like how bad was it? And how bad was it if you've had like guitars like banged around by, I don't know,
Yeah,
like
no, I had
flight crew and stuff?
Yeah, we showed up in Mexico, and when I got to the hotel we got off the plane, got to the hotel, opened up the guitar case, and the entire headstock was just smashed right off the guitar. So that was, yeah, I was lucky in the sense that it was not a particularly expensive guitar, and that I used to play Washburn guitars and they had an endorsement with, and they had literally just given me that guitar, but it was a low end sort of guitar, and I brought it as like the second tuning guitar, which I knew we were only playing 2 songs kind of thing. And it was lucky in that case that it was like not some really valuable guitar that happened. And I told it was like shit, like kind of thing. And I went to the promoters who went to the other local bands, and they lent me a guitar for like to do the switch for the other songs kind of thing.
That's cool. At least you got a replacement.
Yeah,
for
that's
the show.
about the extent of the, I guess, guitar damage from lots of case damage, like, but you know, all the latches on guitar cases, like that just, I've gone through a bunch of cases because of that.
Yeah, but no, other than that, like no major like gear issue, like amps being like, I don't know, like tubes blown out by people like throwing shit around or whatever.
Not well, yeah. There was like, I mean, we played an outdoor festival, but it was like in late October, so it was super cold outside, and it was like a small festival. Don't picture like Wacken, like this is like small festival. We were one of the headliners, and it was like, yeah, you can't like just leave your stuff on stage. You can only load up right before you're gonna play, but it was like -2, right?
Oh shit!
So it's just like plug it in, turn it on. Okay, go, you're on. And it was just playing, and then pop, the tubes just blow because you can't do that. I learned that you can't do that.
you just can't. All right, well, thanks, man, for your answers.
Awesome. Drink some water, Ollie.
I will.
The Anti-Pumpkin King is up next. Mr. Steph, go for it.
Sorry, I thought you were gonna unmute.
No, I'm sorry.
I play the unmute game, so I was just waiting. First of all, pumpkin beer is not that great. Second of all, I have a weird question. I actually think, Danny, you might have half a story, like the backstory of what I want to know. A couple years ago, or last year, I don't remember. COVID's been weird with time. I went to see Cellar Darling in Montreal, and I remember vividly the singer starting the show and blaming the Agonist and you guys and saying, this might be a bad show because they forced me to eat poutine and I don't know what's going to happen. And she started the show like this. So what's the backstory of that?
The backstory is they were in town and we're friends with them. And I said, I'll meet you for dinner. And I met them and I said, so what do you guys want? And right away they said, poutine. Because they're like, this is what you do in Quebec, right? And I was like, okay. So we brought them for poutines, and we got big-ass Poutineville poutines, and then they went, and it took a while for the food, so that anyways, they ended up eating it, and they had to go on like an hour or less after they ate, and yeah. And of course, you know, nothing happened because she's such an amazing live singer that it was perfect.
She did started singing a song that wasn't the song that the band started playing, though.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember that part, and she was like, "See, poutine. That's what happens."
Poutine or beer or something else.
Yeah, that might
It's
be
never
it
the
too.
beer. It's never the beer, people.
Don't let Anna fool you. She's small, but she likes to party.
Very cool. Very cool. And you should always
She has
eat-
Irish blood, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
very important for everyone to note, always eat the poutine after the show when you come through Montreal. If you're a touring musician, get the poutine after the gig. It is always much more enjoyed, and your show is always better. We have Ironbreaker coming up next. He is with us all the way from the Ukraine. How you doing, bud?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing kind of fine. I have a different job right now, so it's really hard to me to take a part of this Thursday Tuesday. But I'm glad I'm here right now.
We're stoked to have you, bud. What's your question for Danny Marino, the Agonist?
My question is kind of selfish, I guess, because I'm from Ukraine, and as I said, Ukraine is like a black hole of touring because everybody avoiding it.
Hey,
so
we
my
went.
question is, do you have plans for shows in Ukraine? Because we have good craft beer too, so it's a
Yeah.
win-win for both of us.
I mean, I remember, I don't remember any brands, but I remember because we like put on our rider that we want, like anytime we were playing somewhere, if you can put local beers from the area in the dressing room, just whatever it is, just as long as it's, you know, some local thing. And I remember being pretty impressed with what was there in Kiev. But we don't have anything booked, to be honest, but we did that tour with Ginger where we played Kiev. At least, you know, I know there's more than Kiev in Ukraine, but it was pretty cool. And that venue was massive and pretty awesome. I don't know if you were there at that show.
No,
No.
sadly no.
Well, we would go back anytime that we are invited, as long as it, you know, at least can pay for us to get there, kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess that's a problem, big problem for Ukraine. But if you go there, I will be there, and I probably bought you guys some good craft beer.
Nice.
Fucking right.
We're playing. We're supposed to play a festival in Russia next year, if that happens, and maybe we could, because we're trying to plan off dates for these festivals, so anything's possible.
Very cool. We're gonna wrap this up.
Really cool.
We're gonna wrap this up with Alberta Chris, who is obviously from Alberta. Unmute yourself, Chris. Go for it. Oh, now we're playing the mute game. See, Steph jinxed us. Go for it. There you go.
Hey, how you doing, Danny?
Good. How are you? How's things
Good.
out in Alberta? Which part of Alberta?
Edmonton.
My favorite part.
Yeah, a lot of guys say that. I seen you fucking slay it at the Starlight Room once, so
Dude,
thank you
that
for
was
that.
yeah, that was great. And then the other one that we played that was actually a lot of fun that seemed weird when we got there. It looked like a cowboy bar, like it's like a round area, like where the band plays. It looks almost like a anyways, the shows
was
are
in
always
Edmonton?
good for us in Edmonton.
That must have been, I think I know the one you're talking about. It actually is a fucking cowboy bar, but they somehow started putting girl shows.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we seen Children of Bodom there. That's the only show I went to there because it's such a fucking shit venue.
Yeah, we
But
played
literally,
there
like
with,
as soon as the band stopped playing, the country music came on, and all these
yeah,
cowboys.
we played there with Flesh God Apocalypse, if you can imagine that. So
Yeah,
Flesh God Apocalypse in a cowboy bar.
yeah. As soon as the band stopped and they opened the regular bar, you can imagine the culture clash was just amazing.
Yes.
My question I wanted to ask you: you have a very good mellow guitar tone. In your experience and your years, what's the simplest, the best metal guitar tone like in the studio on tour? I kind of missed your string gauges there. You sound like you have a really simple rig. I'm just wondering if you could break that down for us a little bit.
I'd say that, in my opinion, the simplest way to a good metal rhythm guitar tone is 5150 with tube screamer. Whether it's, I prefer EVH 5150, but PV 5150 will do as well. So 5150 with a tube screamer in front of that, you can't really go wrong. Ideally, it's going through a cab that has vintage 30 speakers, like a Mesa Boogie cabinet. And that's just, it's kind of the bread and butter. If you ask any producer of metal, they're going to say, yes, that's kind of the go-to. Like, you always know that's going to work. You can try different things, of course, to be at, but like that 70% of metal albums you've heard, that's the rhythm guitar sound.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking you were going to say that. It just confirmed my bias. It's a good overdrive pedal and a good player, and into a good head is just going to make a great tone.
Yeah, it depends what kind of music you're playing too. Like, I don't like active pickups, but if you were in an extreme, very extreme death metal band, then I would use active pickups. But we're not that extreme, so I can use the passives, which have a lot more dynamics, to do other things than only playing on 10 all the time kind of thing.
What type of pickups do you use?
DiMarzio Evolutions, which are basically Steve Vai pickups essentially.
Oh, wow.
So they have a lot of mid-range punch to them, which is good because what you end up doing to get a metal tone often is you scoop out the mids on the amp because it has that like chunk sound, but then the pickups bring a little back, so it lets you cut in the mix a little more, you know what I mean? Because guitar is a mid-range sound. So once you scoop the mids, what happens once the whole band plays, the guitar disappears in the mix.
Yeah.
So you can't like, when you dime bag it, you know, even dime bag it sounds super scooped, but they did things to make it punch out, you know.
Yeah, I always would have guessed from your tone that you were using active pickups.
I was in the first two albums, and then
Awesome.
I switched. Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Very cool. We're going to wrap this up with a spicy question for Mr. Danny Marino. I switch beers. Me and Jessica just cracked this open. It is phenomenal. It's called Frambo. It is a collaborative brew between Avant-Garde Artisanale, and Steph has the same beer if anyone can see him, and Matera. And this is a golden sour ale that has been aged in Chardonnay barrels and then re-fermented in the bottles with raspberry puree. It is to die for. It clocks in 6%, surprisingly high. Delicious. Look at that color.
You luxurious bastard.
I picked it up at La Canette in Villeray. You guys should check that place out. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff coming out of there. Spicy question. I'm super stoked that you were one of the people that took the time and were courageous enough to stand up and voice your opinion against the wrongdoings of John Finberg. If 2020 has brought one good thing, it is the end of John Finberg's notorious reign. So tell
Reign
me
of
about
terror.
Tell me about all of that. I don't want to hear about like what he did to you. I want to hear about how they approached you and how you chose to be a part of it or not.
It was actually Stéphane Melul, who is our booking agent, and a lot of metal bands booking agents. If anyone here likes extreme metal bands, Stéphane probably books half of the bands you like in North America.
Continental Concerts USA.
Yeah. He wrote to me out of the blue at some point and said, "Hey man, I just wanted to let you know I gave your name to the guys at Metal Sucks because they asked me some questions about Finberg, and they asked me if I knew anyone else that worked with him in the past, and I mentioned your name. I just wanted to give you a heads up that they're going to reach out to you because they're doing a piece on him, and I can tell you now it's not going to be flattering. And so I just wanted to let you know about that. And I just kind of wrote back to him like, ha, 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 ha. And I was like, okay, well, we'll see. I'll see what they have to say, and I'll see if I want to talk to them or not. And then so Ben from Metal Sucks called me, and he basically told me some stuff, even some stuff that I didn't know, without too much detail. But he told me some. I know there's a million stories out there about him, but there was even more that, you know, like that he had uncovered. And then he asked me, he's like, so I'd like to talk to you about it. You can tell me whatever you want, and then, you know, it's up to you if you want to be on the record or not, or just be like, a source from a metal band said, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Anonymous.
Yeah, and at first I was a little wary, even though it's like, if there's one guy that deserves it, it's him, just because press drama is really uncomfortable, you know, place
And
to be.
you've lived with enough of it.
Yeah, and it's just like, it feels icky, and I always like feel really a weird feeling in my chest when it's like this thing. But then I was just like, you know, knowing what I know, it's not about what happened to me, because what happened to me happened to like 100 other bands with him, and it was like just a terrible business way of dealing with people, treating them like shit, like not even human sort of thing. And it's like, yeah, that's bad enough, but the sexual allegation stuff was like far worse. And that's why I said, okay, no, I should put my name on it, because if that makes it stronger, then that's good.
Absolutely.
You know, that's good for the cause. And so I did. And it seems like since it came out, I think a lot of other stuff has come out. A lot of other people have come out of the woodwork to give their story now, because now they're like, oh, it's out. Well, I might as well tell my story.
The Me Too thing.
Yeah.
They feel relieved that they can finally say something. And it's amazing that a lot of bands have dropped him, have fired him. I think that's amazing. Shout out to Brittany Slays, the Vox and Hops alumni, two-time alumni, for making a massive, very, very aggressive post tagging all of the bands that are still being booked by him, and saying, why are you still with him when he is this monster and there's all these other options? And she tagged all the other booking agencies. Wonderful. I love that. Thank you, Danny, for taking some time to hang out with me and the Thirsty Thursday virtual gang. I'm super stoked to be with all of you again. I'm super stoked to be with you, Danny. It was a true, true pleasure. You're an excellent, excellent human, and I love you dearly, and you know that. Everybody that's listening at home right now, we're going to keep hanging out in the Thirsty Thursday virtual hang, but you guys won't be with us. If you want to come, you got to come to the next one, which is going to be happening the first Thursday of November. So raise your glasses, everybody. Let's give a huge cheers to Danny for being a good sport. Cheers.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right to the end. You know that I love and appreciate that. Super cool that I got to do this. I loved getting all the extra questions from the Thirsty Thursday gang and including them as a part of this episode. It's something very special and very cool to have my Thirsty Thursday gang's voices on an episode. It's something that I find very special and something that I can't wait to keep doing. If you enjoyed this Vox and Hops episode, you should most definitely listen and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. Vox and Hops is brought to you by Sound Talent Media. I have one more episode coming at you tomorrow, but until then, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox and Hops heads.